with the technology, it'll be a mess. So there aren't many of those, and I think that's one reason why that hasn't gone very far. The passive Haas idea is build it with your 2x4s or 2x6s, or in the case of that woman in Illinois, 2x12s, but then put this on the outside and then put your clapboard on. So there are a lot of houses now that might use an inch of this or 2 inches of this. Then you put the clapboard on and you nail through that into the sheathing that's over the studs. And one big reason to do that is if you have studs 16 inches on center or 20 inches on center or whatever, they conduct a lot of heat. The insulation in between is pretty good, but the studs are thermal bridges. So if you put this on the outside, then you're blocking that. So that's a pretty good thing.
Or a double 2x4 wall. Yeah.
Or double 2x4 walls and offset.
Yeah.
Yeah, but something that gets away from just the quick pathway. And of course, metal studs are even worse in that regard because they conduct so much better. Yeah.
How much was the house in Illinois to construct?
Well, I don't know if the handout got back here far, but as far as you are, but it's about $100,000. No, I'm sorry. It's $100 a square foot. Now around here, that's not much. You know, $100 a square foot says you buy a 2,000 square foot house for $200,000. We're paying a lot more for that in this area. I don't know what it is around northern Illinois. It sounds cheap to me. But I haven't completely digested that. The woman admits that some of it's expensive, and she'd like to get the cost down some. I think more than just the cost barrier. I mean, most of us, if we wanted to, could probably afford something like that. Yeah, because you still have to buy the land and so on. The real barrier here is information. Most of us don't have the time to go out and find the best windows you can buy. And we're going to go to, the contractor's going to say, well, I'll go get them at J.C. Adams or Lowe's or something. Or that thing in the basement that has the air dryer sort of heating element. And I think that has to change more than anything else. Builders have to know about it, consumers have to know about it. You have to build more so someone can say, yeah, I've done that, and I know just what you want. Because when we're busy, we can't just, she had time professionally, she was interested in it. So I won't guess how much more it was, but it's I don't know, 10% more. So it wasn't like twice as much. $100 a square foot just isn't that bad. Yeah.
What's your opinion on ground source heat pumps?
Oh, I think they're great. I don't know what the paybacks are for them. I mean, they're going to cost more. The efficiency numbers are pretty good. It's a reasonably mature technology. I mean, you can find people who do them. It's either boreholes or the horizontal stuff. And I haven't tried to find contractors around here to do it, but it's my sense is there are enough people nationally doing it that it's just not that big a deal. I don't have a whole lot to say. If you want air conditioning too, I think it's probably a good thing. Heat pumps in general, right? If you live in the mid-Atlantic states, where Bertina grew up or where I was born, New Jersey, Washington, heat pumps are great because you're probably going to want air conditioning anyhow, so you just run them as a heat pump in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. Around here, we don't have air conditioning and we're pretty comfortable, and so we have whatever the house came with. If you're building a new house, are you better off with that or with a high-efficiency gas furnace that's at 95% Lennox thing or something? I'm not sure. If you want to have air conditioning in a new house around here, I think it would be central air. I think it would be a real good choice. And just sort of anecdotally, but I can't sort of say, oh, it saves X relative to something else. Yeah.
So how do we get to where we need to get to, in your opinion, in terms of getting to the 50 or 80% reductions in new construction existing? Do you see movement likely to happen? Is it the architects who are going to lead? Is it consumers? Is it builders? Is it policymakers who are going to have to put the kind of building codes in place that we need?
Oh, it's. I guess it's a little of all of the above, but to be a little more specific about that, for existing houses, just what you do for retrofits, I don't think there's going to be much policy other than whatever tax breaks that we come across and say the state offers. And I don't want to trivialize those. So for that, I think it's just a matter of where's my light bulb? Having these on hand, and when the old ones go, you use this. If you don't have insulation in your walls, you're not sure, you find the contractor, or you take the deal from Keyspan or N-Star or whatever, and you have someone, give you an estimate. I don't know what it costs us to blow the insulation in the walls, but I know it's paid for itself. If you need new windows, you're careful. If you buy appliances, you're careful. If I can save a third or so, I think anybody can. And the retrofit market is just so diffuse. I mean, it's all these little contractors and so on. It's like a builder builds hundreds of houses. And I don't see codes changing a lot in that case. But new houses or buildings that undergo major renovation, there's a lot that's going on. The new national standard for buildings that's going to come out in a few years will be 30% more stringent than the existing one, which has already come down a lot over 20 years. And so there are pressure points there. Green is a good thing, and the government's asking for it, and the people who make the standards, the organization I'm involved in, will produce something. And then the federal government will require states to adopt the new standard. So a few years from now, any new building is going to have to be 30% better than buildings that are built today. So that'll help. Can we do better than that? Yeah, California is doing better than that. So then you're talking about state codes. And I don't have a good feel for whether Massachusetts, just as sort of a political entity, is up for requiring more than what's going to be forced on it by the federal government. So then it becomes a matter of information or consumer asking builders to do it. I don't think builders are going to take a lead in this. And so if I put my New England blinders on, I don't see a whole lot of that around here. But other parts of the country, yeah. Couple more. Go ahead.
I have at least 4 questions, which I won't bore everybody with. Here's possibly the most interesting one. If I construct an outside air intake for my wheezy old oil burner, what am I likely to gain?
I can't give you a real quick answer. I'll talk to you when we're done. A couple of things. I think it's a good idea. I have an outside air intake on our gas-fired steam boiler, the new thing that we had to put in. It's called a fan in a can. So it's a fan in a can at the end of a pipe. What it does, in my case at least, our case, is it only brings in air for that furnace when it's needed. So I don't have to have like a leaky house. I can seal up things as tightly as I want, and then when the furnace runs, the boiler runs, I know it's going to get the air it needs for proper combustion. And when it's not needed, it turns off. So if you don't do that, then you've got this thing sitting in your basement regardless of what you're burning, and it needs air to run, like for combustion. Well, in old days, that was no big issue because we had crummy windows and crummy walls and places, our houses leaked like a sieve. And about a third of our heating bills in like the 50s ranch went into just paying for the air that was leaking in through all this stuff. So we try to get away from that. Better windows now, caulking, all that stuff. But when you do that, then the furnace gets starved for air. Right? So it's just trying to suck air in, but the building envelope's pretty tight. So one, you may not get, your efficiency may go down a little bit, or you may have combustion problems. But even if you can suck in that air, you're bringing it in through all sorts of cracks and so on, and you can have problems with that, depending on time of year. Not so much in the middle of winter when it's dry, but you may be bringing in moisture. So it's, I can't say you're going to save 5% to do that of your heating bill, but a couple of, I don't know, 2 or 3% maybe 5%. And I think just in terms of ensuring that the furnace is going to work well and it's not pulling in cold air across your building envelope and then through the basement and so on and up the furnace, I think it's a better thing to do.
When that thing shuts down, I can hear this gentle drift of air up the chimney because that column is still hot.
Yeah.
And just,
Yeah. Oh, right. So you want to cut that off. So if you have the outdoor air intake, but you still want something that cuts off that flow when it's turned off. some sort of damper or whatever, so that when it's not running, but all that thing is hot, it's going to be drawing air through, and you want to stop that. Helen, you had a question?
I was told there's a green building at MIT, or maybe there's more than one. Is there one that the public can visit?
Oh, is there a green building? No, MIT's a lousy place for green buildings. We don't.
I thought my mother said she visited a green building at MIT.
There's one in Cambridge.
Oh,
It's-
Well,
Near MIT?
The one I know is not, is close to Harvard, or that goes to Harvard. There's a demo building,
The old town hall, that one?
no, it was built as a model in that.
something called House N or something?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not a green building though. That's used for various things, like a lot of monitoring and healthcare monitoring and so on. It's not, energy-wise, it's not particularly green. There's no new building on the MIT campus that's particularly green. There have been some that people have said is sort of green, and one may have been LEED certified or something, but there's nothing to kind of write home about. The best thing that we have in the works is my very last slide, which I wasn't going to show you. That's under construction. It's a business school building. That's the Charles there. And it's supposed to be about a third as much as a typical commercial building. And we did put MIT put a lot of effort into that. Walls, windows, all this stuff I've been talking about. Ventilation system. So it doesn't look, it's this thing, it doesn't look particularly green. I mean, I have a green roof, but I think that's mainly for show, but it should be better than the norm. MIT's been very difficult in terms of taking a leadership role. It's getting better. We now have a plan to spend something like $14 million to reduce our campus energy use 9%, which will be a pretty good deal. But it's taken a while to sort of find that stuff. It's all sort of housekeeping stuff. New construction, we're not so great. In MIT's defense, a lot of its buildings are lab buildings, and they're real gas guzzlers. We've got 1,200 fume hoods on campus, and each of those that the sash is left, where people do their chemical thing. If you leave the sash up, each one of those will use about as much energy as in an England house. And so we have a real education thing to get people to lower the sash when they don't actually have their hands in it. But, so maybe we'll have a green building for you at some point in the future, but we're not,
I'm just curious how, like, you had a flight on Albuquerque, how many, I happen to have a friend who lives in Albuquerque, and he went out of his way to buy an adobe house that has like the 12 or
Yeah.
6 inch mud walls.
yeah.
How, I mean, are those terribly efficient or not efficient?
Oh, I don't think they're such, well, I don't think they're going to work as well as the thing I showed you. I think it depends on what else is going on in that house. Does he have air conditioning, or she? Probably. Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Okay, if you don't, it's great. If you don't, it's great. I mean, people build Adobe for a reason, right?
Keep it cool. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
So the idea is if you have this really thick wall, and the sun's shining on the wall, the sun heats up the outside surface of the wall in the daytime, and that heat sort of penetrates in. It's like putting the meat thermometer in the middle of the turkey, and it takes a couple of hours. Well, the heat pulse goes in, and if the wall's thick enough, oops, it's 7 o'clock at night, the sun's gone down, and then it sort of goes back out. It's kind of like the tide. So if you have a thick enough adobe wall, it's great. The solar energy never comes all the way through the wall. The problem with it is that if you get to the point where you want to use air conditioning, you ideally like to have a well-insulated wall because you want it cool inside and hot outside. The adobe alone will just sort of dampen the outside temperature and keep the solar out. But if you want an air-conditioned house with adobe walls, it doesn't work particularly well because adobe is a very good conductor of heat. It's like concrete. So it's good in terms of storing up solar heat and then sort of releasing it back outside. But if you're running air conditioning, adobe alone I wouldn't argue for. So if your friend doesn't have it, great. Wants to put up air conditioning, I would put some insulation somewhere inside or out. Okay. If there's any food left, I'm going to have some. And you want some too.